Hey everyone, today I'm here with the fabulous Will Kostakis. Will is the author of the incredible Monuments duology, a thrilling duology that revolves around three newbie god teenagers as the world's fate is left up to them. He is also the author of The Greatest Hit, Loathing Lola, The Sidekicks, and the first third. In 2005, Will won the Sydney Morning Herald Young Writer Award for a collection of short stories. His first book, Loathing Lola, was published when he was only 19, and his second novel, The First Third, won the Gold Inky Award in 2014. It was also shortlisted for the Children's Book Council of Australia Book of the Year and Australian Prime Minister's Literary Awards. I believe Will Kostakis is not only an incredible author, but also an inspirational one because of all the fantastic books he's written and the wholesome and positive LGBTQIA plus representation in them. Will, thank you so much for letting me grill you.
Thanks so much for having me, although you say grilling now, and now I'm nervous.
Are you ready to get started?
Yeah, sure.
First question has nothing at all to do with your work. You love gaming. If you could live inside any gaming world, which one would you choose and why?
Look, this is really, really tricky, but because a lot of the games that I like, it's like they're games, so it's dangerous to live in those worlds. So once I sort of got rid of that sort of element, I reckon either the world of Banjo-Kazooie, but like the first one when like Gruntilda spoke in rhyme, because I feel like if I had to speak in rhyming couplets, it would be over for everyone else and it would be lots of fun. Or there was this game, it's been re-released like 1,000 times since I played it, but Final Fantasy X. I just really love the world of Spira, and just to have those magical abilities would be really, really cool. And, to exist in a really overwritten Final Fantasy world would be really funny. So yeah, those are my two.
They both sound like really cool options, especially the Final Fantasy one. I think I've maybe played one of those games. I don't really know though. I have bad memory. Now onto your amazing work. Monuments and Rebel Gods make up one thrilling duology. Can you tell us what inspired you to write this?
A few things. When I was your age and a little bit older, I dreamt of writing a sweeping fantasy story. So whenever my mind would wander, I would look outside the train, in Sydney, and I would imagine this sprawling epic fantasy playing out across the rooftops. And I knew one day I would write a fantasy story. And I was a big consumer of fantasy novels, especially sort of the snarky, funny ones by Terry Pratchett and his Discworld series. So I always knew I wanted to do it, but I never had the right time for it. And when you're an author, it's really weird. You're building a brand, because I know it sounds really odd, but people like for authors to write the same book over and over again, which sounds counterintuitive, but it's right. Like I pick up a Terry Pratchett book expecting Discworld, and when he didn't write Discworld, I was disappointed. Like you go in and you expect certain kinds of books from your authors. Like nobody is going to go into a bookstore, seek out an Agatha Christie romance. No, you go to Agatha Christie for, crime. Exactly. And so I was like, I had to build myself up as this sort of realistic author. And I really love that space. I love writing contemporary novels. But after the 1-2 punch of the first third and the sidekicks, I was itching to write something else, something that still felt like me. So it was like Will Kostakis' spin on the fantasy genre. And so I thought it was the perfect time to, while I rested after those really emotional books, to have some fun, explore some ideas, and write about what it would be like to be a suddenly empowered teenager in the early 2020s.
They're definitely really amazing books, and I absolutely love them. So I'm glad you had that idea.
Who's your favorite character?
Probably Lockie. Like I love Connor, like he's amazing, but I absolutely adore Lockie. Like he's definitely my favorite. Yeah. And yeah, when he first appeared in the book, I was like, yes, I love this character. He's so cool.
Yeah, it was fun writing all of them, but I really loved the Lockie Connor romance and sort of,
Mhm.
but in the first book, it's very, you know, Connor and Lockie only know each other 3 days, really. And so you don't really know someone in 3 days. And because it's Connor's perspective, Lockie is kind of like, oh my God, it's this dream boy. And then the really wonderful thing about getting to write a sequel was got to go back, flesh out Lockie, sort of show his family life and things like that. And it was just a pleasure to bring them to life. So yeah.
I've been blessed enough to read both the arc and the final
Yeah.
version of Monuments.
Mhm.
One of my favorite differences is the confrontation between Nero and Sally. Without giving
Yeah.
away too much about the book, can you tell us the
Yeah.
difference between the versions and which version is your favorite?
Well, I love both of them for different reasons. I think the original was just like, okay, this is Sally. She is angry and she is going to do something bad. Basically, I knew that this god, Nuo, was only going to be in the book for a very, very, very short time. But hinted that their powers were really cool. Like they had the power of gravity and they had the power to sort of, you know, shift things, meld things together, like fly. I had all these powers in my head. And then the character never got to do that. And that felt like a real wasted opportunity. And so
Mm.
in the editorial process, I was like, okay, you know what? This character only exists for 2 pages. You know, she's a god. Let me give her something. And so I went back and I gave her a chance to really show off her powers, which I really, really enjoyed.
I absolutely love that scene. It was so cool. Yeah, I thought it was really cool with the gravity and the flying and everything that they had. I definitely love both versions. I think they're both unique in their own ways.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I absolutely love the Monuments duology.
Yeah.
I love all of the characters. Lockie and Connor are definitely my favorite, as you've heard. Which character out of the duology did you have the most fun writing and playing with their development?
Okay, the most fun was a character I didn't expect to even be in the book, which was the driving instructor. And then, like, she was in it for like, I think her name is Jan, and she's in the book like a little bit. And then every time I'd rewrite the book, she went from having one line to being a reference in the first draft, to having 2 lines, to having 5 lines. And then, like, by the end, she's completely broken by Connor, and all she wants to do is sit in the car and read trashy romance novels, which, you know, something that's an existence I aspire to. So it was really, really fun getting to write that. I had just lots of fun with her. Yeah, I'd say she was the most fun.
She was definitely a really fun character to read. It's just like by the time she's just like, you know what, I just want to sit here. I'm done. I'm sitting here. You
Yeah.
gotta do your thing.
It's because it's this weird thing where I was writing a fantasy novel, but I still wanted it to be really funny. But the problem is once you start building stakes, if you start, you know, making fun of the villain and making the villain the butt of your joke, that removes stakes and it makes it a whole lot less tense. And so when I was getting to that pointy end of the book where the villain is being really menacing and it's like, oh my God, will the characters survive? I needed a way for that levity. I needed a way for that humor to come through. And obviously I wasn't thinking this much. This is just sort of what I realized afterwards. It was like, that was the purpose that that driving instructor served. So, yeah.
As well as Monuments and Rebel
Mhm.
Gods, I absolutely loved The Greatest Hit. It was sweet, wholesome, and I could not put it down. Such
Yeah.
a beautiful and quick read. What inspired the central conflict of this book?
That's, I wanted to write a book about people falling in love during lockdown. You know, it was during the first lockdown where I was approached to write it. And it was this weird thing where usually, like, I've just finished my new book. That book's not going to come out until 2023. And I finished the second draft of it, right? So the time between starting a story and release is usually about 2 years. They were telling me to write a book that was going to come out in a matter of months. And so I had a chance to write about COVID and about lockdowns, you know, in a way that reflected what we were all going through because it was such a short production time. And, you know, I used to have a fan club on Instagram where a teenager would just take my photos and make fun of me on Instagram. It was great. The Will Kostakis fan club. I think all the unflattering images are still online. And the creator of that was like, Will, you need to write a sapphic romance. Like, I want to see Will write lesbians falling in love. And I was like, sure, okay, I'll do that. And I did that. I had lots of fun. But in terms of the central conflict, that's where we hit a snag here, because I wrote the first draft and it was fine. And, you know, it's often a thing we get from publishers when you're writing queer fiction, where they're like, hey, let's put in a coming out story. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to, like, because so often coming out stories are rooted in personal shame, and it's that fear of coming out. And then it's like, oh, what if my family doesn't accept me? And I'm like, no, I'm bored of that. That's boring. Like, so, and I'm just really wary of writing that story more than once. And if I keep writing that fear, I'm writing that fear into existence, where, you know, and I don't want that to be a trope, if that makes sense. I don't want that to be like, if it's a queer romance, we need to have a coming out. But my publisher was like, Will, really think you should have a coming out. And so I'm like, okay. And so I thought about a way to sort of write, what's the most queer-friendly way I could write a coming out? And it was, a girl is in a really, you know, accepting family. She lives with her single father. And the reason why she doesn't want to come out to him isn't because she's ashamed of herself, but it's more that her mother was bisexual and left her father, you know, to pursue a romance with a woman. And so she was afraid of, you know, breaking his heart, which is that. So instead of making it about personal shame, it's about not wanting to disappoint parents. And when, you know, whether you're queer or, you know, straight, that's something that we all sort of wrestle with. It is that fear of, oh, what if I do something to stuff something up and my parents are disappointed in me? Maybe that's just the Greek in me coming out. So that's where the central conflict for that came out. And I tried to keep it was finding this weird balance between how big do you make COVID? Do you make it really small and just make references, or do you make it really big and looming? And I think we struck the right balance, but I'm just very glad that I got my COVID book out of the way. It's like one of the first ones to come out, and I'm like, great, I never have to write about COVID again. I can sort of hint at it a little bit, but I've done my, oh, we're all on Zoom book. Like, that's all done. Nice, because I'm bored of it.
Yeah, I definitely feel like coming out stories definitely have their place, but I feel like we need positive queer romance as well, you know, because you got to have that balance. Right? It's not just about the coming out stories.
And it's this weird thing where, you know, the adults will tell, I talk about the publishers if they're the adults and I'm not an adult myself, but it's this weird thing where they're like, oh yes, but no, wouldn't they be bullied at school? And I'm like, no, I visit schools and it's the homophobic kids who get bullied. Like, it's a really weird, and I love it. And it's just this seismic shift that's going on. It
went from being, oh, the gays have been bullied too. Oh, you're against the gays. You must be bullied now. I love that.
Yeah, it's just weird. And like, your generation and younger are so sort of accepting and open and, you know, defensive of your peers. And it's this really loving vibe. Like, sure, you can still be absolute shitheads to each other because you're kids, but at the same time, there's still like, no, like, let's support each other when it matters. And the way I've seen sort of teenagers rally around their trans and non-binary peers, the way that I've seen, you know, teens rally around their gay, lesbian, questioning, bi, pan, like queer peers has been really, really, really wonderful. And I get that people my generation and older are working through their trauma in their writing. But at some point, we need to realize that some of the queer trauma stories we want to write aren't reflective of the world where it's at now. And if we keep writing trauma, then that's an expected part of the experience. Either queer teenagers read that and think, oh, that's going to be my rite of passage, that's what I have to go through, or we inform other people's beliefs where that's the norm. And I don't think it is. And I think in my writing, I can push back against that.
Yeah, I definitely think we're a lot luckier in this generation with that stuff. Like we've made a lot of progress with that, and I think that's important. Yeah. So you're in the public a lot, promoting all your epic books and teaching other writers. What is your most embarrassing author public moment?
Look, I have so many really bad ones, and they are so embarrassing that I absolutely will not share the really, really embarrassing ones, because that's not, I can't do it. Like, it's really bad. Like, I mean, just, and okay, there's one I have to censor it a bit, but I was speaking at a school. I was about to speak. There's a little bit of my hair sticking up in here. There's like 1,500 kids in the audience. The principal introduces me, and he introduces me as William, and then he mispronounces my surname so that it was something really rude. If you think of something rude, it's ruder than that, right? It is bad. There was genitalia involved, and that is as far as I will go. And he got up and he said it, and then I was mortified. The kids lost it laughing, and then I was like, look, and the principal was flustered, like, oh, tried to like save it. I'm like, no, this is so bad, it's amazing. And so I got and we just laughed for an hour and a half. It was the most fun I've ever had at a school. And things like that remind me that I spend so much time wanting things to be perfect that when things are bad, they can be amazing. And so I kind of just throw myself into everything. And if I can if I can live through that experience and come out with a really positive experience, then I can live through anything.
That's hilarious. But it's funny, and you've turned into a positive. So
exactly right.
So now we're on to the rapid fire round. This is 20 seconds, 0 explanations. There is a bell.
Okay.
What are you writing at the moment?
New contemporary young adult. Finished the second draft. Probably going to dive into the third draft early next year.
What is your favorite ice cream flavor?
Cookies and cream.
What is your least favorite book genre to read?
Book genre to read? Oh, you know what? Really boring nonfiction.
What is your current favorite book or series?
Favorite book would have to be Where Things Come Back by John Corey Whaley.
If you could go inside any book and live there for a whole day, which would it be?
The sassy part of me wants to say Harry Potter, so I can be like, look, queer people exist. But I reckon Terry Pratchett's Discworld. I would love to live in that world just for a little bit, not too long, because I don't think they have sewage.
From a different book, which book character would you love to have dinner with? So none of your books.
Let me go with Gandalf.
What's the weirdest thing you've got inspiration from?
Conversations with my cat in lockdown. Don't mock me.
No, it's all good. Conversations with a cat is a good thing. I have conversations with my dog, so.
They don't talk back.
What was your worst school subject?
Science, by far, 100%. I never felt dumber than I did in science. I heard the bonds are breaking in year 7 and the bonds in my brain broke and no looking back.
What is your most significant achievement? It could be anything at all.
For me, I think it's writing the first third, because I thought that was my first book flopped, and I thought I wouldn't get a chance to write a second book, and then I wrote that one, and I got to sort of share my grandmother with everyone. Like it's going to be really tough to top that in terms of how that made me feel. Like I'm sure I'll write more successful books and more award-winning books or whatever, but for me, like in terms of an achievement, that's how I measure it. So yeah, I'm really proud of that one.
What advice do you have for young writers?
Read. If you think you are the only person to have written the story that you're writing now, read. Read widely, read often, read critically, read for pleasure. Yeah, just read so much. You learn so much. Your vocabulary improves. Your brain works better when you read. Yeah, just read.
Great advice. Thank you so much for letting me grill you. This was
The
really fun.
pleasure. I really, really enjoyed myself. Thank you so much for making the time to speak to me.
No problem. Thank you for letting me grill you. Go make sure to go check out Will Kostakis on his social media and go get his books, especially both of these books. It's an amazing duology, and once you finish Monuments, you'll have to read Rebel Gods because it's just so amazing. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
Bye.